Hey there, Steve Dean here. I'd say by far the most common question I get asked when somebody joins my company for SEO services is how long is it going to take me to get to page one of Google? So, in this short video, I hope to answer that question as succinctly as possible. So, it depends on quite a number of different factors. Um, Probably the most important factor, or one of the most important factors, is where do you currently rank for your particular keywords? Because obviously if your position, on page two of Google for your keywords already, then moving you onto page one will obviously take a shorter amount of time. Whereas if you're way back, on page 30, 40, 50, 60, it will take a longer amount of time, all other things being equal, to get you onto page one. So that's the first thing to consider, is where do you currently rank in Google? I actually have a great tool that I personally use to tell me the rankings for my clients' websites. It's called SERP Book, and I'll put a link to that below this video so you can go and check it out. Because obviously, searching your keywords and trying to determine where you rank is actually quite difficult if you're just like searching through pages and pages of Google search results. But I'll give you a handy tool called SERP Book below this video. So the second thing to consider is what's the competition for your keywords. Okay, so obviously enough, some keywords will be more competitive and some keywords will be less competitive. So the example I always give for the least competitive type of keyword is, let's say for example you're a florist in a particular suburb. That's going to be very, very low competition because you're only going to be competing against the other florists in that particular suburb. What would be then more competitive than that is, say, if you were a florist but you were targeting the whole city that you live in, and depending on the size of that city, the competition for that keyword could be more. And then, of course, if you're like a florist that's serving a whole country, then the competition would be that much more, because obviously enough there's going to be a lot more florists going for those keywords, and also you're going to be competing against national companies for those keywords, whereas you're just competing with local businesses for the ones in your suburb. So that's another thing to consider, is how competitive are your keywords. Okay, so the third thing is how established and authoritative is your website already within your niche. So if your website has basically just been launched, then it will probably take a little bit longer for Google to index that site, to trust that site, and to kind of push that site onto page one of Google. And how authoritative is your website. So an example of a very authoritative website would be Wikipedia, for example, and you've probably noticed in various searches that you've done, Wikipedia always kind of comes up the top. So obviously your website probably isn't ever going to be as authoritative as Wikipedia, but again, if you've got a well-established, trusted website in Google's mind, then your route to page one is obviously going to be a little bit easier. Then other things to consider are, what's your current content like? Google loves content, obviously, that's what it is. It's a content retrieval machine. So again, within the first month of your SEO with me anyway, we would always look at your content as being the first thing that we'd look at, because obviously you need to make sure that your content's constructed correctly, ticks all the boxes for Google, has your keywords in there, while also not kind of like over optimizing it, which a lot of kind of amateur SEO people make that mistake. So it's really just a case of looking at your website, making sure that it's structured correctly, making sure that there is content on the website targeting your keywords. And then also it will depend on what your current content marketing strategy is. So if you've got a good plan to release content out onto other people's blogs and websites that link back towards your website, then obviously that's going to push you up the Google rankings, because that's one of the major things that Google looks for, is links on other people's websites that link back towards your website. So basically, to kind of sum up then, to actually kind of answer the question eventually, is how long does it take? I mean, I always say to my clients, as kind of a standard thing, taking all the averages into play, You'll definitely start to see improvement within the first month or two. You'll start to see some good rankings within the first kind of 3 to 6 months, and you should start to dominate certainly in local keywords and citywide keywords within 6 to 12 months. Now, of course, it can be much, much quicker than that, but again, it's a good thing to kind of manage your own expectations. SEO basically is the long game. That's what we're in it for. So we want to get you the rankings, but we also want to do it in a Google friendly way, and we want to do it in a way that's gonna, your rankings are gonna last. Because obviously there's no point in being on page one for a month by using kind of some kind of quick spammy kind of SEO methods, and then Google will penalize your website, and obviously that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. But if you use kind of good strategies, then we're talking improvement in 1 month, rankings within kind of 3 to 6 months, and dominating within kind of 6 to 12 months. That's on average. So I hope that short video kind of helped you out, gave you some ideas of what goes on behind the scenes and things to consider when you're wondering how fast will your website rank in Google. Okay, see you next time. Cheers. Bye.